The silence in my apartment is suffocating. Not the peaceful kind I used to crave when Daniel would ask about my day or suggest we cook dinner together. This is the hollow silence of a life I chose but never really wanted. 6 months ago, I was married to the most devoted man in Minneapolis. Now I'm 34, alone, and discovering that you can't actually turn back time just because you miss being 23. I threw away 8 years of marriage for Friday nights at clubs where the music is too loud and everyone is too young. For sleeping until noon and eating cereal for dinner. For the freedom to flirt with strangers and pretend I don't have crow's feet starting at the corners of my eyes. God, what an idiot I was. It started with my friend Brittany's divorce. She showed up at my door one Tuesday night, mascara streaked, talking about how Trevor had been controlling and she was finally free. We opened wine, then more wine, and she painted this picture of single life that made my stable marriage look like a prison sentence. "Look at you, Lauren," she said, gesturing around my living room. "Married at 26. When was the last time you went out dancing? When did you last kiss someone just because you wanted to?" I tried to explain that I kissed Daniel because I wanted to, but she laughed. "That doesn't count." I mean the thrill of someone new. The butterflies. Remember how that felt? I did remember. And suddenly my life with Daniel seemed unbearably predictable. Same restaurants, same shows, same conversations about maybe starting a family next year. Brittany made me feel like I was watching life pass by from behind a window. The thoughts she planted grew like weeds. Every time Daniel suggested our usual Thai place, I felt trapped. When he held my hand during our evening walks, I imagined all the hands I'd never hold. When he said, "I love you" before bed, I heard the echo of all the "I love yous" I'd never hear from someone new. I started going out with Brittany on weekends. Just dancing, I told Daniel. Just needed some girl time. He'd smile and tell me to have fun, then be asleep when I stumbled in at 3 a.m, shoes in hand, feeling alive in a way I hadn't in years. "You're different lately," he said one morning over breakfast. "Happier. I'm glad you're having fun with Brittany." The guilt should have hit me then, but instead I felt annoyed. Of course, supportive, understanding Daniel would be glad. He probably thought my newfound energy would translate to our marriage. He had no idea I was mentally redecorating my life without him in it. The music at the clubs made me feel 23 again. Men bought me drinks and told me I was beautiful without knowing my middle name, or that I was afraid of butterflies, or that I once cried during a commercial about paper towels. They saw fun Lauren, not wife Lauren who reminded Daniel about dentist appointments and worried about mortgage rates. One night, this guy, Marcus, not his real name he admitted later, pressed against me on the dance floor, whispering that I was too sexy to be married. I left my ring at home that night, telling myself it was for safety. The truth was much uglier. I liked pretending to be someone without commitments, someone whose biggest decision was whether to go home with a stranger. "Your husband's an idiot if he lets you out looking like this," Marcus said, his hand on my lower back. I should have defended Daniel. Should have said that he trusted me, that trust was what mature love looked like. Instead, I leaned into the attention, letting some stranger trash talk the man who'd held my hair during food poisoning last month. "You should be single too," Brittany said one night as we reapplied lipstick in a club bathroom. A girl was crying in the stall behind us, drunk and abandoned by her friends. 6 months ago, I would have checked on her. Now I just reapplied mascara, annoyed by her sobs disrupting our conversation. "You're wasting your youth on some guy who probably can't even remember the last time he surprised you." But Daniel had surprised me just that week. Left work early to bring me lunch because I'd mentioned being stressed about a project. He'd driven 45 minutes round trip to get soup from the place that made it exactly how I liked it when I was sick. Set it on my desk with a note that said, "You've got this," and a stupid doodle of a cat that made me smile despite myself. I didn't tell her that. It didn't fit the narrative I was building. Instead, I told her about how he'd fallen asleep during the movie I wanted to watch. leaving out that he'd worked a 12-hour shift because a coworker's kid was sick. I painted him as predictable, boring, settled. Each lie felt like permission to want more. The turning point came at my birthday party. Daniel threw me a small gathering at our house. Close friends, good food, thoughtful decorations. He'd even tracked down my favorite cake from a bakery across town. Everyone was laughing, sharing stories, and I felt suffocated by the warmth of it all. "Remember Lauren's 30th?" someone said. "When Daniel arranged for that private cooking class because she'd mentioned wanting to learn." "Or when he learned to salsa for their anniversary," another friend added. Each memory felt like a weight. This was my life, documented in sweet gestures and inside jokes. Where were the wild stories, the adventures, the mistakes that make you feel alive? Later, as Daniel cleaned up, humming off key like he always did, I watched him and felt nothing but resentment. He was content with this life, content with me, content with our small routines and quiet love. When had I become someone a person could be content with? "Thank you for tonight," I said, not meaning it. He wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Anything for you. Though 34 looks pretty good on you." 34. The number hit like cold water. Brittany was 29. The guys at the club probably thought I was too. But Daniel knew my real age, knew my real self, and that suddenly felt unbearable. "I think I want a divorce," I said, the words falling out like they'd been waiting behind my teeth. He laughed, thinking it was a joke. Then he saw my face. "Lauren!" "What are you talking about?" His hands were still soapy from washing dishes. My grandmother's china, the set we'd used because she always said nice things weren't meant to be saved for someday. He dried his hands slowly, like if he took enough time, the words might rearrange into something that made sense. "I'm not happy," I said, which was easier than saying I was bored or that I wanted to pretend years hadn't passed. "I need something different." "Different how?" "We can change things. We can travel, try new hobbies, whatever you need." His voice cracked on need, and I had to look away from the desperation in his eyes. "No, Daniel. I want to be single. I want to date other people. I want to go out without checking in. I want to be young again." He sank into a kitchen chair, the one that creaked, the one we'd been meaning to fix. "Is there someone else?" There wasn't, not specifically. Just the idea of someone else, lots of someone else's. "No, it's not about that." "Then what?" "Lauren, talk to me. We've built a life together, 8 years. We have plans. We have—" "Your plans," I interrupted, which wasn't true. We'd made every decision together, from the wall colors to the vacation destinations, but I needed him to be the villain in this story. "I feel like I'm suffocating, Daniel. Like I'm watching everyone else live while I'm stuck in this routine." He ran his hands through his hair, the gesture so familiar it made my chest tight. "Routine?" "We went to Costa Rica 2 months ago. We tried that new Indian place last week." "You're taking those art classes you wanted. What routine are you talking about?" Every example made me angrier. He was right, which meant I had to make him wrong. Those aren't adventures, they're scheduled activities. When was the last time we did something spontaneous? "Tuesday," he said quietly, "when I brought you lunch." "That doesn't count." "Why not?" "Because—" I couldn't explain that spontaneity from a husband didn't feel spontaneous. It felt like obligation dressed up as surprise. "You wouldn't understand. I just need to be on my own." He stood up then, paced to the window. Outside, our neighbor was teaching his daughter to ride a bike. 3 weeks ago, Daniel had offered to help, spending an hour running alongside her pink bicycle. The dad had bought him a 6-pack as thanks. Normal neighborhood stuff that suddenly felt suffocating. "Is this about Brittany?" he asked. "Ever since she got divorced, you've been different. Is she filling your head with—" "Don't blame her for my feelings," I snapped, though that's exactly what was happening. She opened my eyes to what I'm missing. What are you missing? He turned to face me, and the pain in his expression almost broke my resolve. Almost. Tell me specifically what you're missing, and I'll fix it. But that was the problem. Daniel would try to fix it. He'd sign us up for dance lessons or plan surprise dates or buy tickets to concerts. He'd do whatever I asked because he loved me, and that love felt like chains. Freedom, I said. I'm missing freedom. Freedom from what? From me? From this life. From being someone's wife. From knowing exactly what the next 40 years look like. He was quiet for so long I thought he might just walk out. Then, you think being single at 34 is freedom? You think starting over with strangers who don't know your dreams or fears or favorite coffee order is freedom? Yes, I lied. What about our plans? Kids? The house we were saving for? Your plans, I repeated, even though I'd been the one circling real estate listings, the one who'd suggested we start trying next year when our finances were more stable. Stop saying that, he said, anger finally creeping into his voice. Good. Anger was easier than hurt. These were our plans. Our dreams. You can't just rewrite history because you're having some crisis about getting older. It's not a crisis, I said, but of course it was. Every new line on my face felt like a door closing. Every pregnant friend felt like a reminder that time was passing. Brittany made being single seem like hitting pause on aging, like divorced meant young and married meant old. Then what is it? He sat back down, reached for my hand. I pulled away. Lauren, whatever this is, we can work through it. That's what marriage is. I don't want to work through it, I said. I want out. The divorce was quicker than I expected. Daniel didn't fight me on anything. He moved in with his brother, let me keep the furniture I wanted, split our savings evenly. His dignity during the process should have made me feel small, but instead it made me feel powerful, like I was the one who'd figured out life while he still clung to outdated ideas about marriage. The day he came to get his things, I made sure to be out. Brittany and I went day drinking, toasting my freedom with overpriced mimosas. When I came home buzzing with champagne and possibility, the house felt wrong. He'd only taken what was his, but the empty spaces screamed. The bookshelf missing his history collection, the bathroom without his electric toothbrush, the closet with just my clothes, suddenly looking sparse and sad. I found a note on the kitchen counter. His handwriting, always so messy, I used to tease him about it. I hope you find what you're looking for. I'm sorry I wasn't enough. D. I crumpled it up, then smoothed it out, then threw it away. Retrieved it from the trash an hour later and hid it in my jewelry box. Brittany would say I was being weak, holding on to remnants. But even in my cruelty, I couldn't throw away his last words to me. I hope you find what you're looking for, he said when we signed the papers. No anger, no bitterness, just sadness that I interpreted as weakness. His lawyer was a woman who looked at me like I was something stuck to her shoe. I wanted to tell her she didn't understand, that marriage wasn't for everyone, that some people needed more than suburban contentment. But I just signed where indicated and tried not to think about how Daniel's hand shook slightly on his own signature. Outside the courthouse, he stopped me. Lauren, can I ask you something? I nodded, already checking my phone. Brittany was planning a divorce party. Tacky as hell, but exactly what I thought I needed. Was I really that bad? As a husband? The question hung between us. I could list his flaws. He loaded the dishwasher wrong. He snored when he drank beer. He got too invested in documentaries about wars. But none of those were real complaints. The truth was worse. He was a wonderful husband. I just didn't want a husband anymore. No, I said finally. You were great. This is about me. He nodded like that made sense, though we both knew it didn't. Take care of yourself, he said, and walked to his car. I watched him go, waiting to feel free. Instead, I felt like I'd cut off my own arm and was confused why it hurt. But pain could be ignored with enough distraction. My new apartment was perfect for the life I imagined. Downtown location, exposed brick, the kind of place someone might have in a movie about being young and finding yourself. It cost $400 more than my half of our mortgage had been, but freedom has a price. Brittany helped me decorate with string lights and abstract art that meant nothing but looked sophisticated. We hung a neon sign that said, "Good vibes only," in my living room, the kind of thing Daniel would have gently mocked. Everything was Instagram perfect, curated for the life I was supposed to be living. "Now you're living," she said, toasting with champagne. "No more boring married Lauren." The first few weeks were exactly what I'd pictured. Late nights, new faces, no accountability. I posted photos of cocktails and concerts, careful angles that caught the light just right. My married friends commented about living vicariously through me. I felt vindicated. But then, small things started creeping in. Coming home drunk to no one who cared if I made it safely. Waking up hungover with no one bringing water and ibuprofen. The first Sunday alone, I automatically made 2 cups of coffee before remembering. The extra mug sat on the counter all day, accusatory in its wrongness. Brittany started canceling plans. Turns out she was dating someone seriously and didn't need wingwoman Lauren anymore. "I thought you wanted freedom," I said when she chose dinner with Kyle over club night. We were supposed to go to this new place that had silent disco, something Daniel would have tried just to make me laugh. "I did," she said, not meeting my eyes. "But freedom gets old. Kyle makes me want to stay in sometimes, you know?" I didn't know. Staying in was what I'd escaped. "You sound like a married woman," I said, trying to make it a joke. "Maybe that's not the worst thing," she said. "Lauren, are you okay? You've been going pretty hard lately." Pretty hard. 3 nights a week had turned into 5. My credit card statements showed a bar tab trajectory that would have horrified married me. But single me didn't have anyone to be accountable to. That was the point. "I'm living my best life," I said, the phrase hollow as a chocolate Easter bunny. "Right," she said, in the same tone Daniel used when I'd insisted I was fine during our last fight. "Just be careful, okay? Some of these guys you're hanging with seem sketchy." Sketchy was generous. There was Jake, who forgot his wallet 3 dates in a row. Marcus, who turned out to be married, showing me photos of his kids while explaining his open marriage that his wife didn't know about. Tom, who negged me constantly, telling me I was pretty for my age, lucky he liked older women. Each one made Daniel's steady kindness seem like a fever dream from another life. One night, I ran into Daniel's friend Robert downtown. He was with a group I didn't recognize, laughing at something on his phone. "Lauren," he said, surprised. "How are you?" "Great," I said too brightly. "Living my best life. How's everyone?" His pause told me everything. "Good. Daniel's actually seeing someone. Rebecca from his hiking group. They seem really happy." Hiking group. Daniel had asked me to join so many times, but Saturday mornings were for sleeping off Friday nights. Now, some Rebecca was hiking with my ex-husband, probably appreciating things about him I'd stopped noticing. "That's wonderful," I managed. "I'm happy for him." Robert's skeptical look made me add, "Really?" We both needed different things. "Right," he said. "Well, Daniel's hosting game night next week if you want to. Actually, never mind. Have a good night, Lauren. Game night." Another thing I'd complained about. Too nerdy, too routine, too married couple. Now I wasn't invited. The social media hurt most. Mutual friends still followed both of us, so I saw everything. Daniel hiking with Rebecca, a natural photo of them laughing, no careful angles needed. Daniel at a concert with friends, the same band I'd dragged him to years ago, claiming he wouldn't appreciate it. Daniel learning pottery, something I'd mocked when he suggested it as a couple's activity. Rebecca was 37, older than me, with laugh lines and gray streaks she didn't bother to hide. In every photo, she looked at Daniel like he was extraordinary, the way I used to before I decided extraordinary was boring. My own posts became more desperate. "Look how much fun I'm having. See this rooftop bar? Check out this music festival." But the likes dwindled. Married friends were busy with real life. Single friends were younger, moving in different circles. Brittany posted about cooking classes with Kyle, exactly the kind of thing I'd rejected with Daniel. The worst night came 4 months after the divorce. I was at a new club, trying to feel the old excitement. A guy named Sean was buying drinks, showing me photos of his motorcycle when I saw them. Daniel and Rebecca, with another couple, at a cocktail bar across the street. Not a club, just a quiet bar for grown-up drinks and real conversation. Daniel wore the shirt I'd bought him 2 Christmases ago. He was gesturing animatedly, telling some story that had the whole table laughing. Rebecca touched his arm gently, naturally, the way you touch someone when you're secure in their affection. She threw her head back, laughing at something he said, and he looked at her like she was made of starlight. That gesture, I knew it. He used to tell stories about his students. He taught high school history, getting animated about their breakthrough moments or ridiculous test answers. I'd stopped listening sometime in the last year, scrolling my phone while he talked. Now Rebecca was hanging on every word, and his whole face lit up in response. They looked like we used to look, before I decided that comfort was a cage. "You okay?" Sean asked. "You look like you saw a ghost." "I need some air," I said, pushing through the crowd to the bathroom where I locked myself in a stall and cried. Not pretty tears, but ugly chest-heaving sobs that ruined my carefully applied makeup. Some 20-something was puking in the next stall, her friend holding her hair. That used to be me and Brittany, back when hangovers were funny and not a Tuesday morning problem. I was supposed to be the one glowing, the one who'd broken free, the one living her best life. Instead, I was hiding in a club bathroom while my ex-husband enjoyed a normal evening with someone who appreciated him, someone who probably asked about his day and meant it, someone who didn't see his contentment as complacency. The bathroom attendant handed me tissues with a knowing look. Since when do clubs have bathroom attendants? Man trouble? Something like that, I said, attempting to salvage my mascara. "They're never worth it," she said automatically, the response she probably gave to every crying woman. But Daniel had been worth it. I just realized it about 6 months too late. When I finally emerged, Sean had moved on to another girl, someone younger who giggled at his motorcycle story like it was fascinating. Brittany didn't answer my texts. The bartender gave me a pitying look when I ordered another drink alone. 23-year-old me would have rallied, found another conversation, another possibility. 34-year-old me just wanted to go home. But home was an empty apartment that smelled like takeout containers and dying plants. Daniel had always remembered to water the plants and talk to them too, claiming it helped them grow. I'd rolled my eyes but secretly loved that he cared about keeping things alive. I started seeing a therapist after that night. Dr. Martinez listened patiently as I explained how trapped I'd felt, how Brittany had opened my eyes, how I needed to experience life. "What parts of life did you feel you were missing?" she asked. I listed them: spontaneity, romance, adventure, youth. "And have you found those things?" I had, technically. Plenty of spontaneous nights that led nowhere, romance that lasted until morning, adventures that looked better in photos than they felt in person, youth that was really just denial. "Let me ask differently," she said. "What did Daniel represent to you?" Settling down, being old, the end of possibilities. "And what does he represent now?" I thought of him with Rebecca, looking happier than he had in our last year together. Someone who knew what mattered. The therapy helped, but it couldn't undo choices. My friends were polite but distant. They'd sided with Daniel in the divorce. Not officially, but in all the ways that counted. He'd been hurt but dignified. I'd been cruel and selfish. They invited me to group things occasionally, but the close dinners and real conversations went to him. I found out through Instagram that our mutual friends had thrown him a birthday dinner. The same friends who couldn't make it to my divorce party. In the photos, Rebecca sat where I used to, wearing a simple dress that didn't try too hard. She fit seamlessly into the group I'd been part of for years. Sarah, who'd been my maid of honor, had her arm around Rebecca in one photo. The caption read, "So happy our boy found his person." His person, like I'd been a placeholder. My mom stopped asking if I was dating anyone after I snapped at her during Sunday dinner. "Maybe focus on yourself for a while," she said carefully, the way you talk to someone unstable. "I am focusing on myself, that's the whole point," I said, stabbing at my pot roast. "Right," she said. My dad just kept eating, but I caught him exchanging looks with her. The same look I'd seen between Daniel's parents at our last holiday together, when I'd spent the whole dinner on my phone texting Brittany about plans. "Daniel came by to fix the garage door last week," my dad said finally. "Still won't let me pay him." "Good for him," I said, bile rising. Of course Daniel still helped my parents. Of course he still did the right thing even when I'd done everything wrong. "Rebecca seems nice," my sister added, then caught herself. "I mean, from what I've heard." I haven't met her or anything, but that was a lie. I'd seen the tagged photos. Rebecca at my nephew's birthday party helping serve cake. Being invited to family events I now got pity invites to. She'd stepped into my life like it had been waiting for her all along. "Can we talk about something else?" I asked, my voice sharp enough to make my mom flinch. The table went quiet. This was what I'd become, the difficult daughter who ruined family dinners. The one they talked about in worried whispers when I left. The one who threw away a good man for nights that blurred together into nothing. I tried online dating, creating profiles that made me sound adventurous and free. Recently divorced and loving life. But the men who responded saw that as code for easy and damaged. They wanted quick hookups or someone to help them get over their own exes. One guy actually asked if I'd be interested in making my ex-husband jealous, like my pain was a tool for his entertainment. The ones looking for serious relationships passed me by. My age, my status, my desperate energy that seeped through despite carefully curated photos. It all screamed complicated in ways 34-year-old divorced men didn't want to deal with. They wanted 25-year-olds with no baggage or 40-year-olds who'd made peace with their past. I was stuck in between, too old to be carefree and too bitter to be wise. I've started avoiding downtown. Too many chances of seeing them. Daniel and Rebecca, building the life I convinced myself I didn't want. I heard they moved in together, to a craftsman house with a yard for the dog they adopted. The kind of house Daniel and I had looked at before I decided home ownership was another trap. Brittany and Kyle got engaged last month. She asked me to be a bridesmaid, but we both knew it was politeness. We barely talk now. She found what she was looking for in Kyle, someone who made staying in feel like an adventure. I'm still searching in bars for something I had at home. The universe has a way of teaching lessons. Mine came through silence. The absence of Daniel's off-key humming, his random history facts, his hand reaching for mine during movies. I traded a partner for possibilities and learned that possibilities without purpose are just emptiness with better lighting. Last week I broke down and texted him. Just, "I'm sorry." 3 dots appeared immediately. He was typing. They appeared and disappeared for 5 minutes, my heart racing each time. Then nothing. He'd written and deleted responses, probably Rebecca watching from the couch, maybe rubbing his shoulders and telling him he didn't owe me anything. She was right. An hour later, a different text came through. From Rebecca's number, somehow more devastating than silence. "Hi, Lauren. Daniel asked me to respond. He's moved on and thinks it's best if you do the same. We wish you well." We. They were a we now, the unit I'd dissolved for the promise of something that didn't exist. The polite dismissal hurt worse than anger would have. I'd been relegated to a stranger who needed to be managed through his girlfriend, the woman who'd shared his bed for 8 years, who knew about his father's death and his fear of spiders and the scar on his knee from falling off his bike at 7. I was now someone whose texts got intercepted and answered by committee. I screenshotted it and almost sent it to Brittany, then remembered she'd told me last week that constantly talking about Daniel wasn't healthy. "You wanted this," she'd said, not unkindly but firmly. "You can't be mad that he's doing what you said you wanted, moving on." But I hadn't wanted him to move on. I'd wanted him to wait, to pine, to realize what he'd lost. I wanted him to fight for me the way men did in movies, with grand gestures and declarations. Instead, he'd quietly rebuilt his life without me, better than before. His dignity in letting me go was more devastating than any argument could have been. I turn 35 next month. The birthday party invites have already not come. My parents will call, but dance around mentioning how Daniel used to wake up early to make my favorite breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes shaped like hearts. Childish, but I loved it. Brittany will probably forget to text, too busy with Kyle and their plans for a spring wedding I'll attend alone. I've started buying plants again, trying to keep them alive. The first 3 died within weeks. The 4th, a resilient succulent, clings to life despite my neglect. Daniel would know exactly what it needs. He'd probably name it something silly and create a watering schedule with reminders on his phone. Rebecca probably finds that endearing instead of annoying. She probably thanks him for small gestures instead of taking them as her due. Sometimes I walk past our old house. Another couple lives there now, young and hopeful. They've painted the door blue. Daniel and I could never agree on the color. They hung wind chimes that would have driven me crazy, but they hold hands on the porch swing we bought at an estate sale, and I have to look away from their contentment. The silence in my apartment isn't peaceful anymore. It's the sound of a life half-lived, of possibilities that turned out to be dead ends. I wanted to be 23 again, but 34 follows you no matter how late you stay out. I wanted freedom, but I'd been free all along. Free to love someone who loved me back. Free to build something lasting. Free to appreciate the extraordinary disguised as ordinary. Daniel's off-key humming. His history documentaries. His hand reaching for mine during scary movies, even though neither of us was really scared. The way he'd check the locks twice before bed and bring me tea without being asked and know when I needed space versus when I needed a hug. I traded all of that for strangers who couldn't remember my last name and friends who got tired of my drama and an apartment that echoes with the ghost of better choices. The worst part? The life I thought I wanted turned shallow quickly. Clubs are fun at 23 because everything is new. At 34, it's the same music, same drinks, same empty conversations with people who won't remember your name. The freedom I'd craved became a prison of my own making. Bars built from loneliness, and mortared with regret. I still have the note from the kitchen counter, hidden in my jewelry box beneath the wedding ring I couldn't bring myself to sell. "I hope you find what you're looking for," it says. "I'm sorry I wasn't enough." He'd apologized for not being enough when the truth was I hadn't been enough. Not grateful enough, not mature enough, not smart enough to recognize that ordinary love is the most extraordinary thing there is. Last Thursday would have been our anniversary. 9 years. Daniel probably didn't even notice the date, too busy living his new life with someone who values him. But I noticed. I sat in my empty apartment with a bottle of wine and our wedding album I'd somehow kept. Page after page of 2 people who believed in forever, who had no idea that one of them would throw it all away for the myth of greener grass. In every photo, Daniel looks at me like I'm his whole world. And I'm looking somewhere just past the camera, probably checking if my hair looked okay, or thinking about the party afterward. Even then, on the happiest day of our lives, I was looking past what was right in front of me. That's the revelation that comes too late. Youth isn't about age, or freedom, or new experiences. It's about having someone who thinks you're worth growing old with. Someone who sees your wrinkles as maps of shared memories, who knows your coffee order and your fears and still chooses you every morning. And I had that. I had exactly that. I just convinced myself it wasn't enough. Now I'm 34, going on 35, sitting in an apartment that costs too much with plants that won't stay alive, and a phone that doesn't ring with his off-key humming on the other end. The clubs close at 2 a.m. and I'm tired by 11. The men my age want younger women or women who didn't destroy something good chasing something that doesn't exist. The life I thought I wanted was a mirage, and by the time I realized I was dying of thirst, the oasis I'd left behind had found someone who knew its worth. Brittany sent me a photo yesterday of her and Kyle cake tasting. She looked happier than she ever did during our club nights. "Found the one," she texted. About the cake, or Kyle. Maybe both. I responded with enthusiasm I didn't feel, then deleted 3 different texts asking if she remembered when marriage was a prison we'd escaped. But marriage was never the prison. I was the prison, locked inside my own ingratitude and impossible expectations. Daniel was the key I threw away. And now I'm serving a life sentence of my own making. The cruelest part? I hold the cell door shut myself, knowing that even if it opened, there's nowhere left to go. The silence stretches on, broken only by the bass from the club down the street. Friday night, and I'm home alone, watering a dying succulent and pretending I'm not checking Daniel's Instagram through a fake account. He doesn't post much, but Rebecca does. Their trip to Austin, their cooking class, their lazy Sunday with the dog. Every photo is a reminder that I had that life. I had that love. I had that man who would have given me the moon if I'd asked, who settled for giving me his whole heart instead. And I threw it away to chase a youth that was already gone, a freedom that was just another word for being alone, a life that looked nothing like the filtered photos suggested it would be. Some mistakes you live with, some mistakes you die by. Mine falls somewhere in between, a half-life of regret and wine and plants that still wither, no matter how many apologies I whisper to their leaves.